Council meeting to order. Recommendation that the regular meeting be suspended and the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. Call the committee of the whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting of July 24th, 2017 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, at this time, we'll call any folks who would like to come up to speak to council in an informal manner about any topic of their choice that can come forward and speak into the mic. Ms. Starr, would you like to come forward? Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. It's great to be back on Rupert soil. Can I just close the screen a bit, glare?
You may, yes.
I will put it back up, Your Worship. Just going to get a glass of water.
Absolutely. Take your time.
So I am back and now in Prince Rupert. I relocated back to Prince Rupert. I've been back since the 16th of June of this year. It was 3.5 months I was away, and I relocated back to Prince Rupert. Due to the circumstances, I moved back, and it's great to be back in this house, members, and it's great to be back as an ambassador of the McKay Street Park. I'm going to let you take over the floor for a bit, and if you have questions, Your Worship, I will answer them.
Well, I think it's the opposite, Ms. Starr.
No, sorry.
I don't have any comments but to say welcome back, and that we're happy to have you back as a McKay Street ambassador. And yes, you know, we won the 100,000.
I was there.
Yeah. So, and you helped greatly with that, so we really appreciate that, and we're looking forward to working with you on getting that park built.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship, and it's great to be back. Veronica with the city here. I was invited with her, and I was there for 6:45 in the morning for the announcement of the winner, and it was just a nice feeling. Prince Rupert won.
Wonderful.
And I will take my seat on the bench and just exert in council for a bit before I move on, and we'll see each other here in this office, you and I, on Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Okay, Your Worship, thank you.
Thank you.
Great to be back. Thank you.
Nice to see you back too. Okay, next speaker, please. Welcome.
Welcome. Larry Golden, 1601 2nd Avenue West. I want to follow the conversation where we left off last time with the Statement C of the annual report. What I found and what I was trying to get at that time was we used to, with all of our different utilities, we used to accumulate money each year. So the surplus would go into the sewer replacement or the dump replacement or whatever. That, and as people might remember, around 2005, the city got into really bad financial problems, so they were almost going to go into receivership. And I'm just assuming that at that time they changed the funds. So each year in the annual report, you would see this fund now has $17 million in it, plus this year's, how much was surplus this year. Now we've got $17 million. Now we've got $18 million. That stopped in 2005 when we were looking at bankruptcy or whatever. We took all those funds and used them to help pay down that debt that we owed. But the flip side of that is, and what I was trying to get at, we're no longer showing in the annual report, etc., that we're setting so much aside. We collect this much money this year. We spent this much. The rest just seems to be going into general revenue or something else. It should be going into a fund to replace the dump, a fund to replace the sewer lines. That's what happened before. So we went through this near dramatic death, and we destroyed all those funds, and now they're not accumulating anything as far as I can see. Because it used to be in the annual report, it would say we surplus this much this year, and that makes all this much more that we have in the general fund. That all disappeared in 2005. Also, I'd like to talk about the forestry. I asked the firemen today, and yes, we can have campfires in Prince Rupert as long as it's in the city boundaries. That wasn't clear from the general announcement. But I still think with climate change and everything else, we have to rewrite that burn bylaw. So the burn bylaw is you could, as long as you're sitting there and you got a hot dog, you can burn off all this crap that you've accumulated in your house and bring out a hot dog, and it's fairly legal. I think it has to be rewritten and brought up to the times. The times is climate change. Prince Rupert, we can't count on it raining, 30 inches every month or whatever. So we have to assume the worst. And that even means, I think we can talk about CAREP, and I can't remember what CAREP stands for, but we have to pay for it. I think it's for all the gas-driven vehicles we've got and stuff like that. But I think what we should be doing is emphasizing our forest. We have a huge forest here, and we should be actively managing it. And that means the flip side is we want credit for actively managing it, and so stuff like that. But we also have to look at all the ups and downs of campfires. Is just one example that you can't be having campfires in this area. In some areas, even something like a spruce, the needles every year or two fall off. And so you'll have all these dead needles on the tree and then going off. So it's not that, yes, we live in an evergreen forest, but we still need to bring our city burn bylaw up to stuff. And right now it's like $20 for 3 weeks or something like that, as long as you get the permit. And most people don't even get the permit because the guys will come over and just say, oh, you should have a permit. And people that really, a lot of it's the city's fault for just not making it clear to people that if you're going to start burning something, you need a permit. And part of it is that we don't find them. We just pat them on the head and say, oh, you should get a permit next time. And so I think, like I say, we have to adjust to climate change, and so that means making the burn bylaw. No, you're not going to burn a hot dog. You're going to use your gas, propane or whatever. If you're going to have an open fire here in Prince Rupert, you can have it in 3 or 4 different sites, which are already campgrounds or whatever. Otherwise, you're going to have to get a permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other speakers?
I was wondering if Ms. Bauman could answer about the utility surplus, how we show utility surpluses in the annual report.
They're presented in the financial statements. Each utility is its own separate fund. Any revenues, if they're higher than the expenditures, then the net amount goes into the surplus and it accumulates.
Mr. Golden doesn't think the accumulation is shown, and so that's what I was wondering. Is there a separate page for the accumulation being shown, or is it all in the one page with the utilities section?
It's on Statement C, as I did show Mr. Golden in the last meeting. We can actually go over it again, Mr. Golden, at another time.
But you're talking about surplus, and so that's my general thing. My thesis was it's just being thrown into a general surplus fund as opposed to a special fund for sewers, a special fund for this, a special fund for that. So you're being ambiguous. I'm saying it's going into the general revenue fund. Are you saying that's wrong and it is going into a sewer fund?
It is not going into the general revenue fund. Each utility is its own separate fund, and any surplus is designated for its own utility fund. There is a asset management reserve that has just been created, and this is the first year in which it's in operation, in which case we are building towards asset management within each of those utilities.
Okay, that was what didn't come out before, and we were forced to do that when we wanted to extend the water lake up there, and they said no, you don't have any. So it's going to be for all the utilities as opposed to just a lump sum. It's going to be each one separately. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to entertain an adjournment to reconvene our regular council meeting. Moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, the recommendation is that the agenda for the regular council meeting of July 24th, 2017 be adopted as presented with revision to the June 26, 2017 regular council meeting minutes. And that revision is to include the notice of motion from Councillor Thorkelson. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of June 26, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the amended minutes of the regular council meeting of June 26, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 3C, recommendation that the minutes of the public hearing meeting of June 26, 2017 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And item 3D, recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of June 26, 2017 be received. Moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. First up, we have a report from our acting city manager regarding the expropriation of lands on Watson Island.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Watson Island was the site of the local pulp mill and the single largest employer and municipal taxpayer in Prince Rupert. The owner went into receivership from bankruptcy. The jobs were lost. The population fell to half, and the city cut servicing levels and drew on reserves meant to replace infrastructure. After repeated investors purchasing the island with the promise of restarting the mill, the most recent owner, Sunwave, failed to pay municipal taxes, which caused the lots on Watson Island to go to tax sale. There were no purchasers at tax sale, and so the city became the involuntary owner of the land, except for Lot 4, which was the only lot Sunwave redeemed. Therefore, the island currently has two owners, the city, which owns 230 acres, and Sunwave, which owns 13 acres. After the tax sale, and for many years since, City Council's objective has been to sell the island. As such, it did not matter to Council that Sunwave owned Lot 4. Given the dilapidated state of the pulp mill assets and the settlement achieved between Sunwave and the city, Council began the process of decommissioning the mill site in 2015. Now the decommissioning is nearing completion, and the city sees the long-term benefits of retaining ownership and instead leasing the island. This fits into the city's vision for putting Watson Island back to use as an industrial property for the purposes of getting jobs back and collecting tax revenues, which the city has been operating without as the owner of most of the island. Leasing parcels of the island will also translate into stable lease income. Watson Island is unique in that it has access to waterfront, rail, and road. As such, the city believes that the highest and best use of the island is for import-export operations. The plan is to redevelop the island to make it marketable to import-export terminal tenants, providing access to shared use areas such as the waterfront, dock, rail line and siding, as well as laydown and road. The expropriation notice seeks a fee simple interest so that the city can consolidate and subdivide the island based on the needs of future tenants. The city also wants to provide efficient access for all tenants to the most useful portions of the island, which is access to rail, docks, road, and the waterfront area. Having only one owner on the island would allow the city to efficiently manage access. The tenants would know there is only one owner to manage their risk, particularly for security. In order to spend money on improvements to the road, dock, and rails, the city wants to own the property. As such, a fee simple interest in Lot 4 is preferred. Lot 4 consists of two parts that are separated by the CN rail line, a triangular portion on the waterfront and a rectangular portion upland of the CN line. It is not accessible by road and only has access via the water and rail. There is a dock off of the triangular portion, which is at the end of its service life. Currently, the road around Watson Island crosses the CN rail line at two spots, one on the southern end of the island and one at the northern end of the island. At the northern crossing, the city owns the land on the upland side of the rail line, and the water side of the rail line is on Lot 4, owned by Sunwave. This means any future tenant wanting to access the waterfront on the northern side of the island has to retrace back to the southern crossing, which is owned by the city. This is highly inefficient and cumbersome. Additionally, there is rail siding off of the CN rail line on the waterfront side of the island, which partly crosses into Lot 4. This results in rail cars taken off of the CN rail line on the city-owned land needing to be backed off or taken off by way of car shufflers and not pass through the siding. Again, this is inefficient for CN and for the city, which is currently using this method to decommission the island. Ultimately, the best way to make use of the whole island is to provide all portions of the island with access to rail and waterfront areas. The rectangular portion of Lot 4 is envisioned to have access to additional rail line, rail spurs, and area for laydown. To do this, the hog fuel pile located on Lot 4 must be moved. This hog fuel pile also crosses over onto the city's owned portion of the island. The city plans to move this pile away from the center of the island, given it is considered one of the most useful parts. The hog fuel cannot be cut off at the property line where it crosses onto Lot 4. Given the city's history with Sunwave, it is preferable for the city to not be involved in a long-term relationship with Sunwave. Therefore, a leasehold interest is not a feasible option. The process of expropriation required the city to serve notice of the expropriation to Sunwave and PNG, which has a right-of-way for its gas line. Having gas on the island is preferable, and so the expropriation notice should be amended to exclude the PNG statutory right-of-way. Under the Expropriation Act, Sunwave exercised their right to request an inquiry, alleging that the expropriation wasn't necessary to achieve the objectives of the city. The inquiry was held in June, and the inquiry officer, appointed by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, delivered his recommendation on July 13th. In it, he recommended that the city approve the proposed expropriation subject to the exclusion of the PNG statutory right-of-way. The expropriation has to occur at fair market value. Costs associated with and method of funding will be presented in a 5-year financial plan budget amendment, which will be prepared after the resolution to expropriate. Council is recommended to accept the recommendation of the inquiry officer and amend the expropriation notice to exclude the PNG statutory right-of-way and approve the expropriation of a fee simple interest in Lot 4, accepting the PNG statutory right-of-way. This will place the island back under single ownership, achieve the highest and best use redevelopment of Watson Island, and get jobs and taxes back for the community.
Thank you. So the City of Prince Rupert wishes to enable Watson Island to be developed for the benefit of the community and has determined that it should acquire a fee simple interest in Lot 4 on Watson Island, which is owned by Sunwave Forest Products Limited, for the purpose of redeveloping Watson Island, comprising the consolidation and subdivision of land, construction of access works, including related appurtenances and improvements, and the construction of rail lines and rail spurs. As such, the City of Prince Rupert has prepared and served an expropriation notice dated April 7, 2017 in accordance with the Expropriation Act. Therefore, Council has 3 resolutions before it to consider. The first resolution is that Council accept the recommendation of the inquiry officer. Moved by Councillor Nish, second by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution number 2 is that Council amend the expropriation notice to exclude the PNG statutory right-of-way as follows. Whereas the City of Prince Rupert wishes to enable Watson Island to be developed for the benefit of the community, and whereas the Council of the City of Prince Rupert has found it vital to acquire a fee simple interest in that certain parcel or tract of land and premises situate, lying and being in the City of Prince Rupert in the province of British Columbia, and more particularly described as PID 004-403-771, Lot 4, District Lots 507 and 7381, Range 5, and Coast District Plan 4 844 for the purpose of redeveloping Watson Island, comprising the consolidation and subdivision of land, construction of access works including related appurtenances and improvements, and the construction of rail lines and rail spurs. And whereas the City of Prince Rupert has prepared, filed, and served an expropriation notice dated April 7th, 2017, in accordance with the Expropriation Act in relation to the above described property, and whereas Pacific Northern Gas Limited has a statutory right-of-way on title to the above described property M15204, and has requested that the City modify the proposed expropriation to exclude its statutory right-of-way, and whereas it is in the City's interest to have gas supplied to Watson Island, including the above described property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the City of Prince Rupert directs that the expropriation notice dated April 7, 2017 be amended in accordance with the Expropriation Act to exclude from the expropriation the statutory right-of-way M15204 of Pacific Northern Gas Limited, and authorizes the Chief Administrative Officer or his delegates to execute all necessary documents and take all necessary steps to effect this amendment. Moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favour? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And the final recommendation is that Council approve the expropriation of a fee simple interest in Lot 4, accepting the PNG statutory right-of-way as follows. Whereas the City of Prince Rupert wishes to enable Watson Island to be developed for the benefit of the community, and whereas the Council of the City of Prince Rupert has found it vital to acquire a fee simple interest in the below described property for the purposes of redeveloping Watson Island, comprising the consolidation and subdivisions of land, construction of access works including related appurtenances and improvements, and the construction of rail lines and rail spurs. And whereas the City of Prince Rupert has prepared and served an expropriation notice dated April 7, 2017 in accordance with the Expropriation Act, and whereas at the request of Sunwave Forest Products Limited an inquiry was held pursuant to the Expropriation Act, and the attached report was delivered by the Inquiry Officer Alan Hinks on July 13, 2017, recommending the proposed expropriation subject to the exclusion of the statutory right-of-way of Pacific Northern Gas. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the City of Prince Rupert has considered and accepts the recommendation of the Inquiry Officer and approves and authorizes the expropriation of the fee simple interest in that certain parcel or tract of land and premises situate, lying and being in the City of Prince Rupert in the province of British Columbia, and more particularly described as PID 004-403-771, and Lot 4 District Lots 507 and 7381 Range 5, and Coastal District Plan 4844. As amended on July 24, 2017, to exclude from the expropriation the statutory right-of-way M15204 of Pacific Northern Gas Limited, and further authorizes Chief Administration Officer or his delegates to execute all necessary documents and take all necessary steps to effect the expropriation. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Kinney. All those in favour? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to item B. Report from our community planner regarding the application for development variance permit 1501 Sloan Avenue. Welcome.
This development variance permit request at 1501 Sloan Avenue is for the purpose of constructing an accessory building at the rear of the property for the purpose of a hobby workshop. The full application is included in the report. The application is to vary Section 5.1.3b of the Prince Rupert zoning bylaw to increase the maximum allowable height for an accessory building from 3.6 meters to 4.5 meters. The proposed accessory building will be located at the rear southeast corner of this property, abutting and accessible from a laneway. The laneway is developed and maintained by the city. This is a corner lot with a rear laneway, such that the properties to the west, north, and east are not deemed significantly affected by the location of this proposal. Moreover, the property to the south is not deemed adversely affected by the scale or rear yard location due to its proximity to the laneway. City engineering staff have requested confirmation from the applicant that stormwater runoff would be directed on site. The final consideration will be subject to the applicant satisfying this requirement. The review of this application has not revealed significant effects of this proposal on the neighboring residences. Moreover, there is no cost or there are no costs or budget impacts to the city from granting or not granting the variance. Therefore, the application requests approval to proceed to public notification. Do you have any questions?
Questions from council? Okay, a recommendation that the development variance permit application number DP 1706 for 1501 Sloan Avenue proceed to public notification. Moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Niche. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, reports from council. Councillor Niche.
Well, ever since, even before I ran for council, I've kind of always had an issue with the amount of abandoned vehicles in our town. And I've brought this up more informally, and now I would like to see a little bit of action. So what I would like from the city staff is to look into what the cost would be of bringing a crusher in. And maybe we could work with other people, such as Rupert Towing and other towing places that may have vehicles that they would like to get rid of. I would like something done. I'm completely disgusted now driving downtown, and the first thing you see when you pass through Park Avenue now is a Ford Taurus that's got all four wheels missing off it, and I don't know whose the property is. It's right behind Raffles. And it's this is people coming into our town from the ferry side. They get to see this vehicle with four wheels missing off it, and whether the windows are broken or down or what. And this is a problem that has been brought to my attention numerous times by other people too. So this is not just from my perspective, but the perspective of many taxpayers. And it's time to start doing something about it. There is cars parked all over this town. I've seen a vehicle today where there is so much grass growing around the vehicle on the street that our street cleaner has probably not been able to clean that area for years. So now whether that vehicle is even insured, I don't think it is. But there's 8 inches of grass all the way around the front of the vehicle on the road. So it has obviously been there for a while. So my request is that we start looking into the costs of trying to eliminate these vehicles, and if we have to go after homeowners that are storing these on their property, or if we have to go after registered owner vehicles, then we need to start moving forward because it's completely disgusting.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Bauman, that the operations department is starting the process of mapping out a cleanup process for the community, including something like that, right?
We'll be providing a report to council for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Other reports from council? Okay, seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Randella. All's in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.